Hey, fellow traveler. Welcome to the Third Eye Awakening podcast, a show where we talk all about spiritual and psychic awakening, magic, the shift from 3D to 5D, star seeds, ascension, multiple timelines, multiple dimensions, the universe, the multiverse, the Akashic records, all the good things. I am your host, Amy Belair, and I'm so glad to have you here with me today. Okay, let's do this. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Third Eye Awakening. I'm super excited to be talking to Catlin today, who's going to share with us some stuff about her spiritual awakening, her abilities to see ghosts or spirits. I'm sure we're going to talk about all kinds of really cool things. So Catlin is passionate about nature photography and through that, showing people the beauty on earth. She's a mom of two, and she's on a never-ending spiritual journey to better herself every day. Welcome, Catlin. Thank you so much for being here and being willing to share.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
So will you tell us a little bit more about yourself and kind of where you're at on your journey right now and where it all started for you?
Let's see. So where it started, I think that I've always kind of been spiritual just growing up and stuff, but where it really kicked in was about a year ago. I don't know what, so just I'm sorry.
Well, no worries. So it depends on what you consider to be your spiritual awakening. Were you kind of just mostly going through life feeling like, things are just normal and everything, and then all of a sudden you started to become aware of more stuff or open up to more things? Or how did it go for you?
Growing up, I didn't think that things were really normal. I kept telling people about my experiences with ghosts and what I thought, and I kind of got like, you're crazy, that's not real, it's all in your head. But I kind of felt like, no, I don't think so. So I've always been into that stuff, but it just got even more deeper about a year ago. I started listening to tarot readings, and that's what really kicked it off. And then I just kind of spiraled from there, and now I just listen to everything that I can.
Yeah. Did it just sort of trigger a kind of an understanding a little bit, or trigger you on the path of understanding more and wanting to go deeper?
Yeah, because they started talking about like with tarot about spiritual guides and spirits and stuff like that, or like some of them will talk to your ancestors or people who have passed, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I feel like I do that too, so I finally found people that were in that as well, and that's like, it made me feel less crazy about it. So that's when it kicked off. And then I started listening to other people that were like that talked about the ghosts and spirits and stuff. Like, I don't know if you know Shaman Durek.
Yep.
But yeah, and so I started listening. I found his podcast, and he talks about all that stuff and even more, and just being positive. I was kind of in a dark place. I broke up with my ex. I was crazy in love for, so I was heartbroken, and then, found positive podcasts to listen to and people to surround myself with, and started applying that. And then I got into crystals and
yeah,
just I don't know, anything I can. I'm into the moon and moon water and rituals and writing in the journal and the whole matrix and trying to manipulate that and the energy and everything you talk about too. So
yeah, it's amazing how it's a slippery slope. Like once you get on it, it's just like, woo, here we go. It's like being a water slide kind of. And so I'm really interested in, you shared with me, we had a bit of a conversation over messages before you booked in for the podcast, and you were sharing that you'd had some encounters with seeing or experiencing spirits or ghosts or things like that. Is that something that you experienced as a child, or was it more recent with this awakening?
More recently as a child, still now. Like if I can tune into it, and if I want to kind of feel the energy or see ghosts now, I can, but it's not often and all the time. And they're less and less more negative or like demon like. I feel like maybe I don't attract those as much as I did as a child because I'm not in the same circumstances, but definitely as a child, they were everywhere, especially like in my mom's house. She was the one in a satanic occult, and
Right.
yeah, and so they were kind of everywhere. And I feel like it was easy to attach to me because I feel like as a child, you get brainwashed pretty easy into thinking that's normal and just, I don't know, you get sucked into that negativity. So, yeah, I was seeing them everywhere. They're in my room. And so I would try and talk to them and try and, I guess it sounds silly, but send them to the light and just try and help them and understand them and just be there for them, I guess, because they wouldn't really talk out loud. I would just hear them in my head. And I don't know if that sounds, I guess it's not proof, but
Well,
that's what I would do. And they would go away and then another one would come.
yeah, oh my gosh, this is so interesting. That's right. Now I'm remembering our conversation and I was like, whoa, do you want to come on the podcast and share?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So many things I want to ask. First of all, I just want to validate that I think most people who have the ability to talk to spirits, whether it's like ghosts or, like doing mediumship, or who connect with spirit guides or, you know, aliens or whatever, however you want to put it, I think most people receive a lot of communication in their mind rather than in the external world. It's not limited to that. Like, I know people see and hear things outside of them, but I think mostly it's just easy for them to transmit the information right into our brain rather than have to like manipulate third dimensional matter to create sound and to create like conjure up an image of themselves. So I think that's totally valid. And I really think it's beautiful that you just had that instinct, even when you were little, to just kind of like help them go over to the light. Were you scared? Was that scary for you? Yeah.
It depended. Some of them were scarier than others. I feel like there's different levels, and it just depended on the mood I was in. How some nights I'd just be more scared than others, but I figured out that the more scared I was, the more they weren't going to go away. And the more it's just going to kind of feed off of my fear. And then I figured out if I said, I loved you, or like, I would imagine my soul, I guess, my spirit coming out of my body. I'd close my eyes and just kind of meditate and see myself coming out of body and giving them a hug and just like dancing with them and just trying to be happy. And it would kind of take a minute because when I would try and give them a hug, they would like try biting me or making scary faces to get me off. And so, but I would just, sometimes it worked. Sometimes it would scare me. This sounds so weird, but I've never talked to anybody about this. So yeah, but most of the time I was able to start like hugging them or dancing with them or talking to them, and then they just kind of sort of vanish and just never come back. And they were always different. They always looked different. They were never the same. So sometimes I was scared, sometimes I let it get to me, sometimes not so much.
And like in terms of, okay, so do you think that it was that, well, I was going to say that your house was haunted, and then I realized like, well, I don't even know. Did you live in one house? Did you live in a whole bunch of different like homes or apartments? Like, was it something that just seemed to follow your mom based on what she was doing? Yeah.
Yeah. So we moved around a lot. She wasn't very stable with money or keeping anything really. So everywhere we went, it kind of followed.
Yeah.
We were in a lot of houses, well, a lot of apartments. And even when we went to stay with like her friends and family, it would just kind of follow. But her friends and family were kind of into that too. So I'm sure it was already there.
That's so interesting that that was your experience, that when you were little, most of the adults around you were into that kind of stuff, but then in your own sort of like coming into adulthood, you just didn't talk about it with anybody and you feel like other people around you are not into those things and you're just
Uh-huh.
starting to feel comfortable maybe talking about it with somebody.
Yeah, it is weird. I think, well, I could never talk about it with like my mom or any of her friends because, like, with me, I would try to make it better and turn it into more of a positive thing to try and get them to go away. And they were into the opposite, where they would just kind of feed off of that and make it more negative, like worship them basically. I don't even know, because I didn't ask much about it, because I feel like the more that they would talk about it, the more it would surround me, I guess, because it would just be in my head, and that's just constantly what I would think of, and so it would
Right.
attract it to me. So
Right.
I tried not to talk about it with them because I knew that that was the opposite direction of what I wanted to go. And everyone that wasn't into that I've sort of talked to, not like this at all, but they were just like, yeah, that's not real. That's just in your head. And so I'm just like, never mind then."
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I'm just not going to talk about it. Like just
Yeah.
like keep it inside then. Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting. Did you have any brothers or sisters or any other kids that you grew up with?
Yeah, I had a sister. She's 2 years younger. And that's the crazy thing, is because we went through pretty much the same things, all this satanic rituals we would go to, and part of that was sex trafficking. And but I was always the one that got picked the most to go into the rooms. And but she didn't have, I don't know if she blocked out most of that because she doesn't believe in ghosts. She never saw any of that. She kind of just blocks it all out. She doesn't want to talk about any of that. So
Yeah, I can
it's
understand.
just a different experience, even though we went through pretty much the same things.
Yeah. And man, that's so much to go through as a little kid. Like, first of all, it's so much to go through to be sensitive to detect spirits and to feel like that kind of intrusion in your space, like in your room or whatever, but then
Mm-hmm.
also to have all the adults around you be like really dark and not taking care of you and in fact hurting you. That's really 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 hard. I can understand even more why you were just like, I'm not going to talk about it with anyone. I'm not really open to like discussing this with people who are going to accuse me of making it up or, being crazy. Yeah, that's really, really tough. So, did it ever just kind of go away for you as you got older? Like what happened to sort of allow you to go into this phase that you're just now coming out of, where it just kind of went away and you just kind of went as normal as you could? Yeah, what happened? How did it progress?
I think once, they've always kind of followed me around. It got lesser and lesser as I grew older and older. And I think just because I became a more positive person and I knew how to work with them a little bit more, I wasn't so scared. I still get scared sometimes
Mhm.
because it can be a little weird. But so it kind of got less and less as I got older, just maybe because I knew how to deal with it more. And I went to therapy, which helped a lot of the trauma, which I think kind of got rid of some of the negativity. And then the real spiritual awakening, when I broke up with my ex and just got into the tarot, and then it just kind of went off from there, and started listening to more positivity. And Shaman Durek talks about demons and stuff like that, and kind of to transmute the energy. And so that helped a lot to give me more confidence, like, oh yeah, I've been doing it right. And now I don't ever really see them. I can still see spirits and stuff like that if I tap into it. And I think it's funny because my oldest can too. Sometimes he'll say stuff that was like, he'll say, look at grandpa, but I think he just means like an older person, because any older person he'll call grandpa, and
Okay.
there'll be nobody there, or he'll ask me, why are they going into the building, but there'll be nobody there. Like, so I think it's kind of cool, but that was off track. But what was I saying?
I think you were just talking about how, like, since you've done a lot of, sounds like a lot of healing and gotten into your own space and your own self so that you're not so influenced by the negativity that was around you when you were a kid living with your mother, that you have fewer and fewer visitations or encounters with what you would consider dark entities. And right before we started
Right.
recording, you said you didn't really know if they were demons or not. Like, you're not, that stuff you're not clear on, but they felt negative
Mm-hmm.
compared to what you experience now.
Yeah. Yeah. So just that, and like I would do meditations, and I think meditation kind of helped bring you into a more positive. I was going to say something while you were talking, and now I completely forgot.
That's usually what I do. Well, I'll keep talking, and then if you remember it, just interrupt me. But I just wanted to take a
Okay.
moment and appreciate what you're sharing. Like, even though, it's not, you're not like, well, I'm an expert in, handling demons or negative spirits, but just that it's been your experience on your journey, that the more positive your vibration is, the less you magnetize experiences with negative entities, and that when they do come, they probably don't have the same effect on you, which is why they don't come, because they can't get the same kind of effect from you. They can't get the same power. And by positivity, I'm guessing that you mean like just better feeling emotions and better feeling thoughts.
Mm-hmm. Dealing with it a lot better, not letting it take over. Yeah, exactly.
Because that's usually what I tell people, but I'm really lucky. I mean, I just feel for you, and I feel for everybody else who goes through abusive situations in their childhood, because I was really lucky. I was not abused as a child, and so therefore I think I wasn't put in the way of encountering negative spirits. Let's put it that way. Like, I wasn't put in that situation. But when I do kind of encounter them through my Akashic stuff, I'm never encountering them directly. I'm always sensing them attached to other people. And the message that always comes through, the guidance that always comes through is like, this is the foothold they're getting. It's this, you know, painful belief you have about yourself based on this trauma, and it creates like an opening in your aura that they're able to get into, because it's like they can get in and start winding your thoughts and tipping the scales in the direction of producing negative emotions, and then they just pull you down further from there. So
Mm-hmm.
the guidance is always like, heal that spot, bring a lot of love to yourself in that spot, and then they just, it like makes your aura slippery, so they can't attach to it anymore.
Right. And then they don't want to because they've got nothing to hold on to. So it might
Yeah,
as well go to someone else. Yeah. But healing traumas, I feel like, is a big thing.
for
Because
sure.
then I don't, it's like they know what triggers you, and they can play off of that, which
Yeah,
spirals you into a negative emotion, which just feeds them, and they can make it somehow worse than what it actually was. And yeah, so it's good to work on those. And that, I feel like I've worked on a ton with like therapy and then meditations and listening to podcasts. Yeah, so it heals a bunch, and just so that way, I mean, even if I do go back into a trauma for a second, like, okay, let's fix this because I don't want to keep experiencing this, and like, it's okay.
yeah. I
But
just think that I'm really happy to hear that from you, because like I said, I'm always getting it through as guidance for other people rather than my own firsthand experience. And it just sounds like that's exactly what works. And but also that it's not like necessarily have this like intense like self protection practice where you like, you know, zip up your aura every day and smudge every day or anything like that. It's more just like doing the things that make you feel good and bring you back into a state of wholeness where you're just not really available to be fucked with like that essentially
Uh-huh.
anymore. So yeah, that's really powerful. I remember I didn't have, I mean, it's nothing like what you've experienced, but when I was going through my spiritual awakening in my 20s, it was really, really rough. And I had a lot of dark things happen. Again, nothing like what you've experienced. But I do remember that my depression would like, it felt like there was a voice that would try to talk me into like moving away but not telling anyone, just moving far away to some weird remote place in northern Canada and like separate myself from everybody that I know and, you know, never go outside, never go see people. Like it would just like try to talk me into all the things that would keep me even more depressed. And the way I was able to recognize that was because I had been in an abusive relationship. And so I had been like, I'd had somebody deliberately trying to separate me from my family and my friends and like get control over me. And I was like, oh, wow, it's really the same thing. And I felt like that was a negative entity, but it was just sort of when I recognized it and decided I wasn't going to give into it anymore, that it just stopped having an effect and eventually just went away.
Oh yeah. So do you feel like that was like a trauma from your relationship that it was playing off of until you decided, yeah, I'm not going to do this anymore?
Kind I think it was exacerbated by that, but the thing that set me up to be in that relationship in the first place was like, I don't know, like a really low key but still impactful trauma from being a kid where I just felt like really unimportant and not seen by anyone, even though that's not how it actually was. That's just how I perceived it and how I felt. And
Mhm.
so it set me up to like accept, you know, way worse treatment than I would ever, ever accept now. And then that trauma sort of like compounded it and made me vibrationally accessible to entities. I feel like there's this whole hierarchy of there's like demons that are really, really dark and have, you know, like very clear, very dark intentions. And then there's this like spectrum of low vibrational beings that aren't necessarily ghosts, because ghosts are more confused, I think, but are more conscious and aware of themselves, and they're more like tricksters and they kind of just want to fuck with you just to see what they can do. Like it's not the same as a demon that literally wants to like take over your life and, you know, probably drive you to suicide or something. It's a little bit less intense than that, but it could go in that direction too. And then there's
Mhm.
and then at the top of the spectrum I see like negative thought forms that don't really have a personality of their own. They just exist. They're like, you know, people's like if you have a story you're repeating about yourself about how like worthless you are and how you like, say if you're somebody saying to themselves like, I'm such a loser, I always screw everything up, and I'm such an embarrassment to, you know, everyone who knows me or whatever, and they're thinking those things over and over. I feel like there are other thought forms that match that aren't necessarily like a full, they don't have a full personality of their own. They're almost more like a virus that's just like hanging out waiting to like find something that matches it and latch onto it and like milk it. And they're sort of like the demon precursors because they sort of take people and set them up to be even more depressed and even more vulnerable to, you know, the actual really big time invaders, that's or hitchhikers. That's how I see it. I don't know if that's 100% accurate, but it feels, I don't know, feels pretty accurate to me.
Yeah, I feel like that's what I've been dealing with throughout my life. They're all different. Some are way worse than others, and some just maybe that's just the thought forms that you've been talking about that just kind of want to be heard. Because sometimes there's just ones that I just imagine myself like my soul, I guess. I don't know how to explain it. Kind of an out of body experience, but I can see myself through my mind just kind of talking to them. And it's just like kind of negative thoughts. And I just kind of listen to them and give them a hug, and then they'll like transmute and go away. And then I won't ever have to really deal with that again. But they're all different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's the same thing as the thought ones, or they're just, because I've heard some are like actually ghosts of people that just don't know how to forgive themselves, that kind of get stuck in this realm.
Yeah.
And so maybe I talk to them too. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I agree. Like it's tricky to like parse out the nuances, but I think what you're describing like resonates with my concept of the thought forms, the ones that are easier to transmute. It's almost like it's like a little bit of I don't know. Imagine these like clouds of dense thought energy and emotion energy that just kind of like hang around. They're just leftover. Like if somebody's ever thought it and it doesn't get healed by that person, it just kind of like hangs out there. And then it encounters another one that matches it because we're all thinking like, so most of us are walking around really thinking and feeling shitty things for large parts of our lives. So there's a lot of them around. And then they just kind of like, I'm laughing because like reminds me of like a cartoon fart cloud, like, like these like weird rancid clouds in the air. And if we are thinking anything that is in the same vicinity as that, then we connect with it. But the transmuting part is like where we kind of clean it up, where it's like it's just she could just like wave away the fart cloud or whatever, like spray something on it that resolves it back into like the pure but neutral light energy that is everything.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mhm.
because it's not like now it's better. It's just it neutralizes
Mhm.
instead of so negative. That's what
Mhm.
I see too. It doesn't, that's what I mean by it like kind of goes away, I guess. It doesn't turn into light or anything. I don't know. Just kind of disintegrates and disappears from what I see. But
Yeah.
yeah, and then the ones that are kind of worse, more demon like that I used to see, not so much anymore. But those will stay for like a few days. And like, so I have to keep talking to it and just be like, yeah, I know you're here. And then I think maybe after a few days, that's why it goes away. Cause it's like, nah, I'm not going to get anything out of you. Or
Yeah.
maybe I helped in some way. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. They're just like probably just like moving on.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's true. Maybe you did help. Like, I mean, I believe we're all from the same source. I really believe that. That's what I see in my Akashic readings, and that, like every soul is salvageable or whatever. But just so everybody knows, you are under no obligation to try and like heal demons.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
like nobody is, because it's like hard work. I know some people are actually they feel called to that, but yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
wild
When
stuff.
I first moved into the place I'm at now, there was a few, like two or three, kind of hanging around. From what I understand, the family that lived here before me weren't very positive people. So there was a few of them hanging around, and I had to work with them for what was I gonna say? Crap, I keep forgetting. What were you talking about just now?
About not having to heal demons, but that's
Yeah, okay. So I was trying to work with them, and it was just like one after another, and they didn't want to leave for a while. And I finally got the three major ones to disappear. But then it's like I kept having them come to me, just not ones from, I live in a condo, so we're all kind of connected.
right.
And I'm like, not ones from my part of the condo, but they would just keep coming. And at first I would just keep trying to talk to him, and it kind of keep me up all night long. And
Wow.
then finally I decided, like, okay, I really don't want to do this all the time anymore. And then they just eventually disappeared. I don't have to deal with that unless I choose to tap into it and I choose to see it.
That's
So I
amazing.
think I just, oh, sorry.
No, I just think that's amazing that you got to a point, and maybe I'm misunderstanding, but it feels like you just got to a point where you were like, even just trying to engage them in a conversation to heal them and clear them out is giving them energy, and I'm too tired for this bullshit. So I'm just
Yeah,
not
because
gonna
it
do it
really
anymore.
does. And you think, like, just talking in your head isn't a lot of energy, but somehow it drains you. It just makes you so tired, and you're just like, oh my gosh, I can't keep doing this. And then it's taking away from you, like
Yeah.
from me, because then it's draining my energy, and then I have no time to replenish it or sleep or do any of that stuff. So I'm just like, I'll do it when I choose.
Yeah.
And it's worked ever since. All I had to do was make the decision, and it just happened.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
so cool. I love hearing that. That's fantastic. So curious, like oh my God, you must have been so scared as a little kid all the time.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
oh man. Was there anybody that was like taught you how to do this, or anybody that was there that was kind of like kinder or helpful to you? Or did you just literally have to figure it out because spirits would show up in your room and you had to learn how to deal with it?
So I feel like my stepmom, she tried. I feel like she tried. She just didn't understand. And her way of helping me was telling me that it's not real. So
Mm,
maybe I would just believe it was not real and it would go away.
right.
But I knew deep down, like, it's totally real. So then on the other hand, I had my mom, which was my real mom, she was into that sort of stuff. And oh my gosh, when I was in high school, I mean, all throughout my childhood, I was scared of the dark, terrified. I'm still scared of the dark. I have to sleep with the night light and the door open with the light on in the hall.
Yeah.
But it's a lot better than I used to be. But I would always have to sleep with my sister in the same room. I mean, all the way up until I moved out of the house. And like, I'd take a shower and my sister would have to be in the bathroom. Like, I couldn't be alone. I would go to school and I walk alone in the halls and I'd just cry because I hated being alone. I felt like I was gonna get attacked or something. I don't know, but at night was the real problem in the dark. So I didn't hardly ever sleep growing up or as a child. I'd always have nightmares. And then it got really bad in high school. I went about a month with, oh God, hardly any sleep. Every night I'd have the same dream of I'd be standing by the doorway watching myself sleep, and then this little girl would come and like rip my stomach open and eat my flesh. And then, I mean, that's really gruesome. Yeah, I know. And then there would be like this shadow man in the corner of the kind of by the closet, just sitting there and watching. And I'd have that dream every night for about a month, and I wouldn't hardly sleep. But I told my mom about it, and she said, "Oh yeah, that's really happening." And I'm like, "Oh, that
Wow.
doesn't help." So, and then she took me to one of her therapist friends, and that just made it even worse because she made me go in, like, put me in a meditative state to talk to that shadow man. And it wasn't anything good in the closet. And so for a while, I was terrified of closets, still kind of am, but it's a lot better because I've worked through a lot of it. But yeah, in high school, that was the absolute worst. The only time I would really sleep is after school for about 2 hours before my parents would come home.
Wow.
And I'd be doing homework and I just fall asleep. And my stepmom even took a picture of me one time just falling asleep, trying to do my homework during the day. And then at night, after I'd have those dreams, I'd just go around the whole house, turn on every single light, and pace back and forth and cry. And the thing about my mom is she would tell me like demons could possess toys, they could possess people, right? So I was scared of Toy Story. I hated that movie. I still don't like Toy Story. Like, that's freaking creepy. And then I couldn't trust anybody. Like, my stepmom would try and help me at night while the lights were on and I was pacing back and forth. She'd lay in bed with me. I mean, I'm a teenager. You think that's just so childish, but she'd lay in bed with me and I was crying and I was so scared of her because I think this could be a demon trying to talk to me or trying to get me. So I was scared. I was terrified of everything. And so, but it's a lot better now.
I'm so
I
glad
got
that,
through a lot of it.
yeah, I'm so glad that you're feeling like, I have no doubt that it is a constant journey and that there are many, many layers, but that you're feeling on the other side enough to say that it's a lot better now. Did you in high school, did you live with your dad and your stepmom?
So it was half and half, like
Okay.
half custody. My dad and stepmom for 1 week, then I'd go for 1 week with my mom.
And did they
And just
know that that's the stuff that your mom was up to? Like, did they have a sense of what you were being exposed to and what you've been going through?
they had a little bit of a sense, but a little bit, only just because I would have the nightmares at their house too. And so they kind of knew that, but they didn't know the full extent because my mom would say if I told anybody, I don't even remember the exact words that she would say, but basically scare us to not telling anybody about what was going on and that she was the only safe person that we could talk to. And like everybody was out to get us, everybody was possessed. And so me and my sister, we hated our dad and stepmom for the longest time because we thought their house was haunted. It wasn't safe over there, when in reality it was the other way around. But as a child, you kind of believe whatever your parent says. And since she was the only one talking about that,
Right.
that's what I believed.
Yeah. Oh man, that's such horrible gaslighting, to be like, I'm the one who's opening the vortex for all of this negativity to come in, but you can only trust me and you can't trust anybody else, and demons could be everywhere and you should be afraid of everything at all times.
Oh yeah, it was crazy. She thought she could save. She would tell us how she was basically gonna save the world when all shit went south. I guess the world was supposed to end, the second coming and stuff. Well, that was another thing she'd scare me and my sisters. The world was always ending, always. Every week she was have to be prepared because the world was going to end, and if we were at our dad's house we would die. So every time we'd go to our dad's house for the week, I'd just be terrified. And 2012 came around and I thought for sure I was going to die because we were at my dad's house, and I just remember that night bawling. I was just so scared because we weren't with our safe mother, but she was supposed to save the world. She was the only one that could. So I don't know, but I've forgiven her. I don't know, because there was a lot. I mean, there's way more to the satanic stuff than just the demons.
I'm sure.
We've been to, satanic rituals and sex trafficking. Like, she was always having men over and then just leaving me and my sister, and so there's a lot more, and there's a lot I could be mad at her for. But she grew up like that with her mom and all of her family. Her mom was satanic, and I kind of feel like if I didn't have my dad and my stepmom to kind of counteract all that, because they didn't really know about it, but I kind of got some sense of normal from them.
Yeah.
She didn't have any of that. She was just engulfed in that from her whole childhood. So I don't know. I was mad at her for a long time, but now growing up and just working through my own stuff, now I can see like her side of it. I guess she didn't really know. I don't know. I didn't really talk about it to her either because she made things worse.
Right.
But
Is your mom still alive?
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't talked to her in about 6 years.
Yeah.
When I had when I was pregnant with my first, that's when I just ended everything. She's not safe with kids.
Clear.
So
Yeah.
then I ended everything, blocked her on everything. Every few years, she'll reach out to me and my sister through Messenger, and we just kind of ignore.
Yeah.
But
I
yeah, I just
I think that's
go
really
ahead.
beautiful that you've forgiven her in insofar as like I think the wonderful liberating thing about forgiveness is that it's just like to me it's not that what happened was okay or anything like that. It's more like I just don't want to keep leaking my power and energy to it anymore. I just want like
Mm-hmm.
I can see enough of the other perspective to find a way to like no longer be actively, you know, emotional about it. But I also think like we can't like we get there when we get there, right? Like yeah, of
Yeah.
course you had to go through and you know, it's possible that it could come up again because you just went it sounds like you went through so much and I can only begin to imagine that there's like just way more to this story of what you experienced growing up with her than the tiny, tiny bit that you've shared here. And there's probably like shit tons of stuff that you have every right to be angry about, but that it sounds like you just got to a point where you were like, kind of like with the demons, like, "Oh, this is really taking a lot of my energy. And
Yeah.
I just
And
want
it
to move
does.
on."
Yeah. Yeah. And I think also what helped is I learned that in every negative situation, there's a lesson. And so that's also what I've been trying to do to just stay more positive and in a better mood because shit happens all the time and it sucks. But there's always you could either just stay and soak in it and make things worse or try and learn from it. And so that's also what I kind of did is like, what did I learn from all? I mean, that was 19 years of my life before I finally ended it. I've learned a lot. There's a lot of good things. I also think that it did make me more sensitive to spirits, which kind of get stressful and scary sometimes. But I think that it's really cool because I mentioned it to a lot of people. Maybe they just don't want to talk about it because then they'll feel weird. But not a lot of people see it. I guess see ghosts like I do, or talk to them that
Mhm,
I've talked to,
mhm.
or that they want to admit. But I think that's pretty cool. And then I also learned what not to do with my children.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, I'm so happy that you had this sort of stabilizing influence with your dad and your stepmom, even if, you know, you felt really untrusting of them when you were a teenager. I'm glad that you had that exposure, and I'm really happy that your children have been like a pathway to they just open up pathways to healing and we accept them that pathway or not, and it sounds like you've accepted it and that's really beautiful. I'm very happy for you that you're feeling like I said enough on the other side to say like it's way better than it used to be. I've done a lot of work on it.
yeah.
And so rediscovering like so discovering the tarot and shaman durek and other just sources of kind of interesting spiritual information, has that also been healing for you? I imagine it's also been like triggering at times because that was all very dark and unsafe and had really intense associations for you for a long time.
hmm
Has it been kind of hard or has it just felt like, oh, this is kind of what I always believed it had the potential to be and I finally found, you know, people who talk about it in a way that makes sense to me and isn't scary.
I think both. Some of it's triggering, but most of it, 95% of it is just like a relief because I've always kind of felt that way, like what people talk. I'll think stuff in my head and then I'll hear it on a podcast or I'll see it just around me, or someone will say the same thing just to kind of solidify what I believe, I guess, and so it's more of a relief because I've always kind of felt that way about the stuff that I listen to, and so it helps me a lot, and it gives me new tips and tools to get over things and make my life a lot easier,
Yeah.
a lot better. But some of it can be triggering. Like at first, when I first started listening to Shaman Durek, he would talk about demons and ghosts, and I just immediately get like my heart would sink, and I'd be like, no, I don't want to hear about that. Because for so long, every time someone would mention it, it would be either a really bad thing or that what I saw was invalid.
Right. Right.
But then I'd keep listening and I'd power through it, and it'd be a lot better. And then eventually I'm just like, okay, it's really not that bad, because he's not going to give me something to make it worse, just tools to make it better.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's fantastic that you've just been able to find sources that kind of reclaim it for you so that you don't feel like you have to go the complete opposite direction and shut all of your magic out and all of your gifts and all that stuff. And my last question is, do you now, are you finding like any connection with your spirit guides or any like higher frequency beings?
Yeah, I found one, and I can't remember if I think it's the Pleiadian. He has super long white hair and a long white beard. He's my main one, and super nice guy. But he's helped me a lot whenever I feel alone or unsure of myself. That's the one I go to. They say when you're little and you have what are imaginary friends, that could be guides too.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had this just random imaginary friend named Todd, and he was a turtle. And so I think that's one of them. But mostly it's just I don't know his name. I've never really asked because I don't care. I just kind of feel it.
Yeah.
Or I just talk to him. But that's one of them. Then I started listening to Dolores Cannon about like aliens and stuff, and I feel really connected to those as well. I've always been super into aliens and just feel maybe I'm kind of alienish. That's just how I feel. I don't just kind of weird and out there, and nobody really gets me. I don't know.
Yeah, you're probably, my guess is that you're a starseed just based on how all of this stuff resonates and how even when you were little and like literally scared, witless all the time, you still had a sense of like trying to neutralize that energy through like love and trying to like, redirect them to the light. That sounds like total starseed business to me. Yeah. Oh, well, I really appreciate you sharing your experiences. Like we talked about just before we started recording, I get messages from a lot of people who, they have dark experiences too, or they're afraid of dark experiences. They've heard about them. And I think like, even though it can be scary to hear this stuff for sure, it's almost like not hearing about it is worse because then you just feel like you don't have any information about it at all. And yeah, I appreciate your willingness to share this kind of stuff because it's obviously like really vulnerable experiences. And you just said that it's your first time really talking about it with anybody.
Yeah.
I feel super honored to receive your experiences and your story and your perspective.
Yeah, thank you for having me on and letting me talk about all this weird stuff and making me feel a little bit more normal. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, well, I totally think you're normal. I totally think that this life and this world, this realm, there's way more to it than most of us acknowledge, than many of us experience. And yeah, so I just think you're all kinds of normal. You just sensitive and been through lots of stuff. So thank you. And I hope that hearing this, you got something out of it. I'm sure you will have something that is of value to you. And as always, I love you so much. And I appreciate your listenership. I appreciate your attention. And I hope you have a great day or night wherever you are. And I will catch you on the next episode, guys.
Thank you so much for being here with me on this episode. I appreciate you more than my words could ever say. Please remember to rate, review, subscribe, and share, and I will catch you on the next episode.